This video is brought to you by Magic Spoon. Everybody loves, I'll say that again just in case you couldn't hear me through my mouth full of Magic Spoon. Now everybody loves cereal. That shocks absolutely nobody. But the thing is, it's not always great for you. It's been many years since I've eaten cereal because the reality is most cereal just has too much sugar that I just don't need in my life. I don't have the healthiest diet in the world, but I generally stay in okay shape by just not eating tons of unnecessary sugar. Anyway, along comes Magic Spoon and they're like, Simon, check out our cereal. It has no sugar and it only has 3 net grams of carbs and it's only 110 calories per serving. Now look, honestly, I don't know a ton about this stuff. I don't know much other than protein, good, carbs. I mean, they're good for energy, but they're not necessarily good for remaining in like trim figure, especially if you lead a sedentary lifestyle like myself, sitting at a desk. But the zero sugar, it totally sold me. It also tastes amazing. This is the peanut butter flavor. This is a new flavor. They have cinnamon and peanut butter, which before they had like these 4 flavors, you know, chocolate and fruity that I love. But cinnamon came and I was like, this is gonna be it for me, guys. Cinnamon is the one. But no, cinnamon's great. Peanut butter is king. This is incredible. It's also keto-friendly, gluten-free, low-carb, as I already said, GMO-free, all that good stuff. Now you can also go build yourself a personalized cereal box of custom flavors, which is incredibly cool. Anyway, click the link below or go to magicspoon.com/brainfood, grab a variety pack and try it out. Also use my promo code BRAINFOOD and you'll get free shipping. Further, Magic Spoon, 100% happiness guarantee, so if you don't like it, you get your money back, but you will like it. Get the peanut butter. It's wild. And let's get into the video. Anyone who has seen Mad Men knows, oh god, I love Mad Men, knows that the 1960s in America was a time of unmitigated consumerism. Advertising was largely unregulated, a fact that continues to influence certain industries today. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the cereal aisle. Several mainstays of the canonically fuzzy cereal multiverse have their origins in the Wild West period of children's marketing. Lucky the Leprechaun, Toucan Sam, and of course the infamous mouth-mutilating Captain Crunch. While he may seem like any other innocent mascot, Captain Horatio Magellan Crunch is a man of mystery and intrigue. He has been subject to a US naval investigation, helped give the world the iPhone, and Captain Crunch was also around before the cereal that bears his name was even finished, with flavorist Pamela Lowe still working on the product while Quaker Oats was already done with the marketing side. As to that flavor, Lowe, who, by the way, was also involved with the development of Almond Joy and Mounds, as well as the Heath Bar, states she was attempting to come up with that ineffable quality known as want-more-ishness with this particular product. Towards this end, she tried to mimic something close to a brown sugar, butter, and rice concoction her grandmother used to make her as a child. Once she had the flavor nailed, the product was launched and the world got Captain and some really sore guns. I have to say, I have no idea what this tastes like. I've never had Captain Crunch. It's just not in the UK as far as I'm aware. Or at least it wasn't when I was a kid. As for the Captain, one might assume that a great deal of research went into designing the saccharine sailor's uniform, but they would be incorrect. The US Navy follows a strict code defining how uniforms are to reflect rank. The most readily apparent way for the general public to identify a captain would be the number of stripes displayed on an individual sleeve. Per regulation, captains wear 4 stripes, commanders 3, lieutenants 2, and ensigns 1, with additional thinner stripes for grades between. This is where the question of Mr. Crunch's proper rank becomes uncertain. Over the years, he has variously appeared with anywhere from 1 to 3 stripes, even when apparently serving as Ensign Crunch, although he has continued erroneously to make use of the title Captain. The idea that the SS Guppy may be helmed by a spokes-character of fabricated credentials caused enough of an uproar among the fan base that the question was posed to the United States Navy. In a 2013 article in Foreign Policy, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Flaherty explained that our personnel records do not show a Captain Crunch who currently serves or has served in the Navy. More ominously, Lieutenant Commander Chris Savillo told the Wall Street Journal that we have notified NCIS. Such flagrant disregard for regulations would carry serious implications. There are different laws for civilians and military personnel, so the outcome would depend on whether or not Mr. Crunch is actually employed as a member of the armed forces, which might be the case if he were, say, operating under a pseudonym. According to Article 106 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, disciplinary action for impersonating an officer can incur court-martial, fines, and imprisonment. For civilians, the issue is a bit soggier. A number of laws have been written and rewritten in an attempt to clarify what comprises a criminal act of impersonation. One of the most recent is the 2013 Stolen Valor Act, which targets those attempting to gain tangible benefits through falsely claiming certain honors. I'm going to get in trouble. When I applied for my card to travel on public transport, they had so many options for title that I just chose Colonel as a joke. Unfortunately for anyone eager to prosecute Mr. Crunch, that law is written around a list of medals and other specific recognitions, such as the Medal of Honor, none of which have appeared on the Milky Mariner's outfit. At most, Captain Crunch might be tried under 18 US Code 912, which would see him serving at least 3 years in prison. Alternatively, his outfit's general resemblance to that of a high-ranking Navy officer could be argued under 10 US Code 771, which makes it illegal to wear a uniform, any part of which is similar to a distinctive part of the uniform of the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine Corps. The Captain and Quaker both responded to the public outcry by noting that he does not claim to be a captain, but rather a captain. The company... Such a weird pronunciation. The company then made the argument that we don't feel the fourth stripe is necessary. The captain is, after all, the captain as he mans the SS Guppy. And it's the crunch, not the clothes, that make the man. Hilarious. As to that uniform, it very closely resembles the uniform worn by George Dewey, the only person in US history to attain the rank of Admiral of the Navy. That same interest in maritime history is perhaps why Captain Crunch's arch-nemesis is a pirate named Jean LaFoot, based on a real-life Frenchman named Jean LaFoot, who, among other things in his life, was a smuggler, spy, pirate, and interestingly enough, critical to the US's success in the War of 1812, when he used his not-so-little smuggling fleet to aid Andrew Jackson and co. during the Battle of New Orleans. The price for that help was full pardons for himself and his men, though he would later continue his nefarious ways with great success anyway. In any event, shortly after the inception of Captain Crunch, audiences were introduced to his canine first mate, Sea Dog, and a crew of children who ostensibly serve aboard the SS Guppy, in a labor arrangement that is, at best, very questionable. Team Crunch was forever at odds with the villainous Jean LaFoot, who was forever trying to steal the Guppy's store of Captain Crunch. The sugary breakfast treat, that is, not the captain himself. LaFoot expressed little interest in kidnapping. The Barefoot Brigand would eventually receive his own line of cereal in 1973 called Cinnamon Crunch. Things changed dramatically for the pirate on June 25, 2012, when LaFoot live-tweeted a caper that went horribly awry. The Buccaneer somehow managed to take control of the SS Guppy, only to realize that he did not know how to steer the ship. Sea Dog then took hold of his leg. 6 minutes later, fearing for his life and already apparently injured by the dog's attack, LaFoot tweeted that he was going to jump overboard. As of 2020, a full 8 years later, this is still the last tweet sent by LaFoot, and it remains unclear whether or not the swashbuckler is still alive. Curiously, Jean LaFoot was not the only pirate to stem from Captain Crunch's legacy, and two others who took up the mantle are now household names the world over. As to those others, for much of breakfast cereal history, it was common to find a prize inside certain boxes in order to appeal to children, not unlike why McDonald's includes toys in their Happy Meals. Kids are going to come for the cheap toy regardless of whether they actually like the food product. One such prize was offered by Captain Crunch in the 1960s, a seemingly innocuous whistle. Styled after naval bosun whistles used to transmit orders on a sea vessel, the plastic instrument happened to be able to produce a tone at exactly 2600 Hz. This is important because AT&T phone systems functioned on a series of tones that indicated which line was to perform a given action. Producing the right tone at the right time gave one control over part of the system, such as the ability to make free long-distance calls. The culture that grew around learning to manipulate this infrastructure became known as phreaking. One of the most important phreakers was John Draper, who was not coincidentally aliased Captain Crunch, thanks to the aforementioned whistle. Moving beyond whistles and instruments, Draper, along with several others, ultimately constructed what came to be known as blue boxes, devices capable of emitting the various tones necessary to take advantage of AT&T phone lines in various ways. Phreaking was arguably the beginning of what would later develop into the computer hacking subculture. Among the members of this burgeoning group were two young men who were inspired by John Captain Crunch Draper. Indeed, they sought him out and learned his whistling ways. Of course, these two took it a step further when one of them realized they could monetize the concept. Their names were were, of course, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, who created their first business together making these blue boxes, which were incredibly valuable not just for prank and free calls, but also to criminals the world over, thanks to the fact that the free calls could be made in such a way as to be incredibly difficult to trace. As Jobs explained, you could use the device to call from a payphone and go to White Plains, New York, take a satellite to Europe, take a cable to Turkey, come back to LA. You can go around the world 3 or 4 times and call the payphone next door and shout in the phone, and it would be about 30 seconds, and it would come out of the other phone. As to their initial exposure, Jobs explained in a 1995 interview, "We were so fascinated by them, blue boxes, that Woz and I figured out how to build one. We built the best one in the world, the first digital blue box in the world. We would give them to our friends and use them ourselves. And you rapidly run out of people you want to call. But it was the magic that 2 teenagers could build this box for $100 worth of parts and control hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure in the entire telephone network in the whole world. Experiences like that taught us the power of ideas, the power of understanding that if you could build this box and you could control hundreds of billions of dollars around the world, well, that's a powerful thing." Of course, the 2 stopped making the boxes after they were nearly caught by the police. Incidentally, the aforementioned Draper wasn't so lucky and served a 5-year jail sentence, though briefly worked at Apple before being given the boot, as most everybody at Apple couldn't stand Draper, except, according to Wozniak himself. In any event, despite giving up on the venture, Woz and Jobs reportedly made about $6,000 selling blue boxes, and Wozniak claims he was once able to prank call the Pope, posing as Henry Kissinger. The Pope, unfortunately, was sleeping at the time, so he wasn't able to talk to him directly. Summing up their first business venture, Jobs stated in the aforementioned 1995 interview, "If we wouldn't have made blue boxes, there would have been no Apple." And now for some bonus facts. When Steve Jobs briefly worked for Atari, he was given the task of trying to reduce the number of chips in the arcade game Breakout as much as possible. The task was a bit over his head, but as he'd done before and would go on to do throughout his life, he demonstrated great business savvy and ability to exploit other people for his own gain by giving the job to his much more technically skilled friend Wozniak. He offered Wozniak 50% of his earnings from Atari for taking the job. Wozniak then did it, reducing the number of chips by an astounding 50, meaning the total earnings for the job were $5,000. $100 per chip removed was Atari's offer. They then paid Jobs the agreed-upon $5,000. Jobs proceeded to give Wozniak $350, stating that Atari had decided to only pay Jobs $700 for the job. 10 years later, when Wozniak learned of this, he wasn't upset, but said even if Jobs had told him at the time, he'd have been happy to have given Jobs the lion's share of the earnings, even though Woz did all of the work, as he knew Jobs needed the money at the time, and he was a friend. This would set a trend in their relationship, though, Woz doing the work and Jobs taking the credit and the lion's share of the money. As Wozniak said, Steve didn't have a code, he wasn't an engineer, and he didn't do any original design. Another friend of Jobs's, Daniel Kotke, said, "Between Woz and Jobs, Woz was the innovator, the inventor. Steve Jobs was the marketing person." But to be fair, Jobs was one hell of a marketer, and without him, Woz would have probably just had a nice career working at HP his whole life. Jobs even had to work at prying Woz away from HP, even as their company grew, simply because Woz loved working there. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. Please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.